Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm very excited. I'm going to be doing my last book review of January 2022. I will have my full January wrap up coming in my next video, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to talk about Waif by Samantha Kolesnik. I hope that's how you say it. It might be Kolesnik today. So this book was graciously sent to me by my friend Blackacre Doe over the holidays. If you have not checked out Blackacre Doe's channel, absolutely give him a subscribe. He does a lot of dark indie book reviews as well as a ton of guitar tutorials that focus around like Slipknot and some more heavier genres. But yeah, so he sent me this. I have a theory that this might be a book in the upcoming Nightworms package. For February. They've given a hint that she is going to be one of the featured authors, and I do know that this is her newest release. And I've never read anything by Samantha Kolesnik before. And this is definitely more on the edge of extreme horror. I know that when Blackacre sent it to me, he was kind of like, don't know if this is going to be your thing, but I thought it was really well done and really well written. So I wanted you to check it out. So let me read the back for y'all really quickly. So it says, Angela has everything she thought she ever wanted. A successful husband, a lavish house, and a bottomless fortune. But the sight of a strange man in a grocery store one night reawakens her dormant sexuality, and soon Angela embarks on a dangerous descent into the world of underground pornography and back-alley plastic surgery. As the stakes get higher, long-buried memories resurface, and Angela finds herself enamored with Prynne, a fetish film performer. With some help from a queer gang called the Waifs, Angela is forced to make the decision between her unhappy upper-class life and the treacherous world of underground film. And so the first thing I want to say about this is I feel like the back of the book gives the reader the wrong idea. This isn't necessarily not what the book is about, but it's definitely not how the book is structured. It's a little, it doesn't quite give into what the actual stories and themes of this book are, and I do find the back of the book just a little misleading. So I want to start off by saying that I think Blackacre was right initially that this is definitely not my kind of horror. This was a 2-star read for me, but it wasn't a 2-star read because I didn't like it the way I didn't like Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. This was just not a book for me. The themes, the topics, the execution, it was very well written. It wasn't something I really want to read about. There's a lot of body horror in this book, which is something that I'm not really into. And it just felt like, if you've seen the movie Requiem for a Dream, this kind of felt like reading that. It's obviously not the same premise, but there's a lot of interesting, disgusting, tragic imagery in this novel. It's a very pro-women book. In fact, it's almost, I don't want to say overly feminist, but it definitely paints every man in this book as the villain, regardless of who they are, where they're from, etc. There isn't a single man who's a main character in this novel that isn't a bad character. There's like 2 side characters who are really only in it for like 2 minutes that are just kind of there to fill a void of a background. But I found that a very interesting direction to take. And it just felt very unrealistic at the same time. I feel like Requiem for a Dream is one of those movies that like, it makes you so uncomfortable because you read or you watch it and you're like, I can see how this happened. This one, it gets almost so extreme that it almost borderlines on absurdist. And I feel like that was done intentionally for artistic purposes to really nail this very pro-women, women first kind of narrative. But for me, it just took me out of the story being realistic. This book deserves a lot of trigger warnings, especially on like violence against women, trafficking, a lot of just really disturbing and uncomfortable things. And it just wasn't, I feel like the horror in this novel and the grotesqueness of a lot of the scenes and the really like kind of demeaning condescension that these men put on the women of this story, it just didn't feel worth reading to me to get the final narrative. I felt it was very anticlimactic towards the end. Like it just kind of like ends with like a driving away into the sunset kind of moment, and that's not really what I wanted from this. And I felt like everything kind of got like wrapped up in a nice neat little bow, but not everything was really explained. Like the main pivotal plot line of the story kind of gets dropped off 2/3 of the way through, and then we never find out what happens to some of those characters in the end. And like I really wanted that storyline to have a conclusion, because I felt like justice wasn't served or justice wasn't depicted. Like there was no comeuppance, there was no, it's like, I don't even want to say escape. It just kind of felt like it got sidetracked and I didn't get what I wanted out of the story. And our main character, she was just kind of all over the place. She wasn't a very likable character. I understand that she was going through her own like internal struggles of trying to figure out who she was, but she herself really was not a very good person either. And so I had a really hard time sympathizing with her and her plight, just because the way she treated other people around her was kind of awful. And yeah, she's been treated really, really badly as well, but she's also not an angel, and I felt like she kind of almost viewed herself as one. So I don't know, this book had a lot of really interesting topics and conversation starters in it, but I just feel like it didn't execute it as well. And it's only about 100 pages. I think it's actually only 99 pages. And I feel like this could have been so much more if it had had more to it. Like had it been a full novel and we had all of the storylines fully fleshed out, fully concluded, lots of characters developed, more background on who some of these characters were, because there were some really, really interesting characters. Like I was really interested in learning more about Rena and Jameson, and they just kind of felt like they were put there as plot devices. But they had like inklings of being really interesting characters compared to our main character, Angie, who I just found to just be just extremely unlikable, and so many horrible things happened to her. But because she herself was a very selfish character, I just felt like I didn't feel the sympathy that I should have felt, that the author was trying to convey that I should feel towards her. So yeah, I don't know, not my favorite. 2-star read, not because I hated it though, just because this wasn't a book for me. And I know that it has a really, really high rating on Goodreads, and I understand why. And if you are into like very, very pro-feminist horror and very, very extreme uncomfortable body horror, with lots and lots of trigger warnings thrown in between, and I know that some people really, really like that, then this book is probably for you, but this was not a book for me. But I did want to read it. I'm really happy that Black Acre sent me this, because I'm trying to not really get into extreme horror, because it's not something that I gravitate towards, but there are some titles in extreme horror that I think are worth reading. Gone to See the Riverman, I definitely think is one of them. I read that earlier this month. I have a whole review on that. And as uncomfortable as that book made me, I thought it was brilliant. It was atmospheric. It told a really insane tale. It was gripping. And the things that happened for a reason, to basically push the story forward. I felt like justice was served in that book. Whereas this one, I felt just had a lot of shortcomings and did more to just make me feel icky and gross and sad than it did to make me feel like there was a stronger, deeper message conveyed in here. So yes, this is one of those books that I'm sure many, many people will love this. Samantha Kolesnik has an amazing writing style. I actually really, really enjoyed her prose. But the topic, the subject matter, the execution, the gore, the body horror, the just overarching premise of this novel was just not the type of horror I want to read. And again, while it could definitely be, it had the ability to be rooted in reality, but I think it took such an absurdist angle on the way it depicted things that to me it just couldn't be taken realistically. To the point that I almost wonder if this book was meant to be like black humor. Like it just goes from 0 to 60 and is just so over the top at moments that I really do wonder if this book was meant to be more on like the black humor side of dark horror, and I just didn't get it because I was so kind of upset reading what I was reading about. And I know that that's a big thing with books like American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, that the book is meant to be very darkly comedic, and yet I couldn't even stomach getting through that novel because of how just over the top and grotesque it was. So yes, Waif was not a me book, but it could be a you book. I don't want to discourage anybody from reading it. It does deserve all of the trigger warnings that you see. It is short and yet very, very deeply upsetting in text. So that is what I have to say on this. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturday. If you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.